Mr. Agnew.
We're talking about the use of renewables in agriculture, and whilst this is very desirable when it comes to saving energy, this is now being conflated with improving the world's weather, which we are not going to do. And I don't know if Mr. Glattfelder is aware that if you want to improve yields in glasshouses, the easiest way of doing it is to pump in carbon dioxide, which in this institution is seen as the big enemy. Actually, there is a shortage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for optimum plant growth. Anaerobic digesters are wonderful if they're on the unit where the material is produced and they can then produce some electricity to keep it going in intensive livestock. But of course, anaerobic digesters where you're growing maize, to take it miles to an anaerobic digester for subsidised electricity, which the consumer pays for, is a madness. I have a poultry unit at home which is not on the grid. I am still trying to find somebody who can put a solar panel there because the majority of my consumption of energy is on hot sunny days for cooling, and yet I cannot find anyone who can do this for me. If ever there was a need for subsidy, it was in there somewhere. The second speaker, Mr. Parrott, said that reducing yields is the way forward. I have to disagree with this. It will result in higher prices, and it's the poorer people who will really pay the cost of that. He also talks about saving energy and min-till. Well, glyphosate is the key to doing this, and yet the European Union does not like glyphosate. He talks about organic farming creating jobs. Yes, it does. Hundreds of people required to hand pull weeds in the fields. If they're to be paid a living wage, food would be so expensive nobody could afford it. The third speaker talked about genuine renewable things, small farmers. I'd like to ask him about his attitude towards the use of human-treated sewage, because that really is completing the circle. That becomes a fertiliser for the next crop, yet many people shy away from this. Thank you.
And biofuels, well, I know there are lots of byproducts there, for example, proteins, in the area of proteins. So when it comes to waste, Mr. Agnew asked a question about that. I think the Hungarian Research Institute looked into how much a biofuel would end up in waste water. Apparently 130 tons of food stuff ends up in waste. But our population is only 2% of the EU population, but the 2 billion euros worth of food material and foodstuffs, it actually ends up in the waste in the wastewater system, in the sewage systems, ends up in the seas. So that's something that should be that waste material, that waste food should be used. Mr. Agnew talks about the use of carbon dioxide in greenhouses. Yes, that would be possible if we could use biogas to heat individual glass houses. Then we could also then channel in CO2, but the same is true for geothermal heating, because with geothermal heating on the surface you often generate CO2, or you also generate inert gases.